after my mom died, particularly, I would be sitting and reading. My grandmother's music boxes would start playing. And it wasn't just like a little, it would play for a couple of seconds. It was music boxes would turn and play as though they had been completely wound up for several minutes.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Paranormal Among Us. On today's show, we're having another medium join us. Faith Koltak from Denver, Colorado is going to come in and talk about her journey as a medium. But first, before we get to that interview, I want to remind you guys that if you have any paranormal stories that you would like to share, please feel free to email me at paranormalamongus72@gmail.com. That's paranormalamongus72@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to read the stories on an episode, on a future episode, or if you would like to be a guest on an episode, we can have you on and we can talk about it. All right? Joining me now on the Boomcaster hotline is Faith Koltak. Faith, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Good. So you are a medium.
I am a medium.
How long have you known that you were a medium?
Oh gosh. So I have known, that's a difficult question for me to answer. I think I've really only known it for maybe 4 years now. Mm-hmm. I've really only acknowledged it for about 4 years now. Let's put it that way. Okay. And I've only owned it maybe for the last 2 years. It really hasn't been that long that I've owned it. It's been there almost my entire life, but it's really a difficult thing to own. It's a difficult thing to claim.
What do you mean by that?
So when you tell people that you're a medium, people have this expectation that you're going to be able to provide information to them and for them, that you're automatically going to be able to connect to whatever loved one that they want to connect with, that you're going to be able to give them any information about that loved one that they want to receive. I can only connect with that loved one if that loved one wants to connect with me. I can only provide the information that that loved one wants to provide. So it felt like there was this heavy sense of responsibility for me in allowing myself to own being a medium, that I also had to acknowledge. I had to let go of some of that sense of responsibility and acknowledge that I can only receive what the spirits are willing to give me. That I can't give to somebody else information that I don't have.
I got you.
So there was a learning curve for me in that.
Right. And then probably a learning curve for other people, not expecting you to automatically get it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My ability to explain that to people too, to say, look, I'll connect with somebody. It may not necessarily be, somebody's always willing to come through for you. It may not necessarily be the person that you want to connect with. 9 times out of 10 it is, but it's not always.
Yeah. That's understandable. Spirits don't always want to talk, they're off doing other things.
And maybe there was, not a great relationship, and maybe the message that you most want to receive isn't really what they have to share. And, there are all kinds of things that happen that I don't always have access to that information for why they're not coming through, but.
Now, you said you've pretty much known this for years. What are some of the earliest accounts that you can recall of spirits coming to you, wanting to communicate?
So probably the earliest clear memories I have, my mom died when my grandmother died when I was 17, and my mom died when I was 19. And after my mom died, particularly, I would be sitting and reading. My grandmother's music boxes would start playing. And it wasn't just like a little,
Wow.
it would play for a couple of seconds. It was music boxes would turn and play as though they had been completely wound up for several minutes. My daughter would be in bed. My husband at the time was out of town, so I was the only one in the house awake.
And those music boxes, you have to physically turn those on the bottom or wherever to get them to play. So yeah,
yes,
okay. And they're not easy. You can't bump them and all of a sudden they turn on.
Yes, no, and there was nothing there to bump them.
Right.
I remember very vividly an instance where my now ex-husband made a very poor joke about my uncle, who is a gay man. And we were getting ready to go into a car wash. And I'm dating myself, but this is back in the days where you had to turn the radio off to make the antenna go down on the car before you could go into the car wash. So I had turned the radio off. The antenna went down. We went into the car wash and he made this joke that was in very poor taste. And all of a sudden the radio was blasting. And I was trying to turn the radio down. We're in the car wash. I'm trying to turn the volume down. It won't turn down. I can't hit the power button because we're in the car wash. We come out of the car wash and I hit the power button to try to turn this blasting radio off. And the radio came on at normal volume. So
wow.
and he kind of looked up and apologized to my mother for having made that joke in very poor taste. And so whether it was my mother or my grandmother, there was obvious displeasure.
Somebody didn't like that comment. Yeah.
Yes, about that joke. Yes. So the very earliest memories are of my mother and my grandmother coming through with messages. As I got older, when I bought my first home, the first home that I bought, well, let me back up actually. The first home that my ex-husband and I bought together, there was a presence in that home. So my ex-husband, without going into too much detail, my ex-husband's job, my first husband's job was not legal. We'll just say not legal. And there was a presence in that home. And I believe that it was a male presence, was displeased by the fact that my ex-husband's job was not legal. I was very young. I was in my early 20s. Maybe had just gone into my early 20s. I was married very young. And I remember often when my ex-husband was out of town, I would hear late at night this entity come up the stairs. I would hear his footsteps on the stairs. I would hear him come into the bedroom. He would just stand at the side of the bed and I could hear breathing and I could feel anger. And he would just stand there for several minutes and turn around and walk down the stairs. And it happened probably at least once a month. I was the only person in the house who ever felt his presence. My daughter lived there. My mother-in-law lived there. My husband at the time obviously lived there. I was the only one who ever felt his presence. We had other occurrences. My dog one night kind of went crazy, growling and barking at something in the living room that I couldn't see, scratching at the floor, just going crazy at something that I couldn't see. We had instances where doors and windows were opened and left opened.
With no explanation of how they opened?
With no explanation of how they were opened. And these were doors that were like closed and locked inside the house at night before anybody went to bed. So with no explanation of how they were opened at night. So multiple things that happened in that house. When I bought my first home here in the Denver area by myself, there was only one family that had lived in that home before me. They had lost a child. I think he was 7 or 8 when he died, and I'm not 100% certain how he died. So they had lost one child when he was young. They lost another son as an adult, and he lived in that house when he passed. And he he served in Vietnam and had PTSD. And so he had lived in the house when he passed. And then the husband had died while he lived in the home. So I bought the home from the wife. And all 3 of those males were still, their presences were still in the home. The young child,
wow.
Oh, it was interesting. The young child, I remember the closet door to the linen closet outside of the bathroom would sometimes get stuck. And there was one time that I was trying to open it, and I in my head saw this kid on the other side of the door, holding it and giggling. I could envision him there. It was totally, it wasn't that the closet was stuck. It was that this young boy was kind of playfully not letting me into the closet. He was just playing. He was being a kid, So that kind of became a game between he and I with that particular door. The son who had served was another really angry presence. He did not like that I was in that house. He frightened me. He really scared me. He would occasionally come into my bedroom at night, and he was a frightening presence. The father, I think, is what kept me from being too afraid. You were going to ask a question.
So the father kind of protected you from the son?
I believe so. I mean, the father was there, and he made his displeasure known when I made changes, like when I painted, when I could feel his presence, and I could feel kind of he didn't like that I was changing what his wife had done to the house, because it was their house. They kind of built it. It was one of those, they custom built it. He built a lot of the cabinets. He had been a woodworker. I talked to her at the closing and heard a lot of the stories. But yes, I think the father's presence protected me from the son who had the anger.
Did the son ever do anything to harm you, or?
Yeah, no, there was not anything. I never truly felt that I was seriously in danger. But he was frightening. His anger was just that palpable.
Did you try and communicate with him and maybe ask him why he's so upset with you, or?
I didn't. That was before I really understood how much ability I had to communicate. So this was almost, 17, 18 years ago.
Okay.
So before I really understood how much ability I had to communicate.
You had the ability, but you just didn't know how to. Okay.
Yes. And I mean, I did have conversations, I'm not sure what you want from me. I'm not, right. I'm not intending to cause any harm. I understand that you're here. I don't mind that you're here. I'm not going to ask that you leave, but I will ask that you leave me alone. That you just allow me to live here peacefully as well, type of conversations. But no, I never communicated directly with him looking for a response, because at that point I didn't understand that I had that ability. Yeah.
Now, when you did understand that you had that ability and you were able to control it or whatever, what happened? I mean, were you able to communicate, or how were you able to communicate with some of the spirits? And you're laughing.
When I learned I had that ability, so I had I'd had a friend who had passed away and he kind of came to me, showed me a bunch of dragonflies. I got this, received a message that he wanted me to reach out to his family, let his family know that he was okay. Okay. And it was just like, it wasn't a direct interaction communication type of thing.
Right.
A couple of months later, another friend passed away. And I was making dinner one night, in my kitchen, cooking dinner. And my friend Leroy came to me and told me he wanted me to reach out to his mom and his girlfriend to pass on a message. And I'd only met his mother one time, did not know his girlfriend. Was literally standing in my kitchen, cooking dinner, having an argument with a dead man. I thought I had lost my mind. I really was questioning my sanity.
Understandable.
At that point. Okay, Leroy, you want me to do what exactly? Right. You want me to reach out to your mom, reach out to this woman that I've never met, and say, hi, I'm a friend of Leroy's. You don't know me, but he has reached out to me from the other side and asked me to pass on a message. And they're just going to hear this. They're not going to think that I'm absolutely batshit crazy. Like they're just going to hear this from me and like
out of the clear blue sky. I mean, I would think most people would think, hey,
right. Exactly. And he said, yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do. It's really important. I need you to do this for me. And I'm like, Leroy, I fucking think I'm crazy. Like they're going to have to and probably had a half an hour argument in my kitchen with a dead man. Finally.
Now I one question here. Did you burn whatever you were cooking?
No.
Okay,
nope,
good.
Didn't burn. Probably in part because I was arguing with Leroy and he was also a great cook. So
okay, good. So he knew when to back off. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, so I, ended up pulling a couple of tarot cards and from a very specific deck that I almost never use. And the cards that I pulled from that particular deck are part of what helped his girlfriend believe that the message came from Leroy.
Really?
Because those cards spoke to her.
Wow.
Because they were specific to who he was and a part of his life that I wasn't really, that I didn't know much about, but she did. So I reached out and said, hi, I'm Faith, a friend of Leroy's. We've never met. He has reached out to me from the other side and asked me to give you a message. And she came to my house, ended up spending the night that night after we talked, and I gave her this message. And the message ended up being there was some conflict. Leroy had wanted to be buried. He had some indigenous blood. And he wanted to be buried on tribal land, but he has children who live here in Colorado. And So his mother wanted him to be buried where his kids could visit his grave. His girlfriend really wanted to honor his wishes and have him buried on that tribal land. And so there was some conflict about where he was going to be. And his message was, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm not in my body anymore. So it doesn't matter where you put my body. Like, he just wanted there to not be that conflict and not be grief about that, not have guilt about that.
Mm-hmm. And you knew nothing about this before he contacted you?
I knew nothing about it before he contacted me. No, I hadn't spoken to his mother in years, and I had never even talked to his girlfriend.
Wow. That's...
Yeah.
I mean, how did she take it? I mean, was she blown away?
She was blown away, and she was, I believe, really relieved that was something that she could let go of, because she was really carrying a lot of stress, because she really wanted to honor those wishes. And she was struggling with the fact that what he wanted was being overlooked.
Right. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool story. So you have this ability, and you know how to control it. How have spirits come to you and to want to talk to others, or have they?
So in situations like that, where they just kind of present themselves to me, although that's less common, more often than not, it's the people who come to me who want to interact with a loved one.
Right.
And then it's their loved one coming through. I have had people who have come in to see me for a tarot reading, and their loved one has come through earlier in the day and has provided me with information. And so I've had conversations with them when they've come in for another reading and said, hey, I had this experience earlier today that I feel is related to you. Does this resonate with you? Is this, was this somebody who is connected with you? So occasionally they do kind of come through on their own to offer information. That doesn't happen often, but it has happened.
Yeah, if you get somebody coming through asking about me or telling you about me, let me know. Well, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Will do.
And actually, I'm kind of watching the door behind you. It'd be really cool if it would slam or something. And I'm looking for movement back there. I haven't seen
any movement in this office, and it isn't an office building. I'm not like at home. So,
right.
I haven't seen any movement in this office.
Okay.
Well, I take that back. The one time there was activity in this office. It's not here any longer, and it did come off of a client that I had. There was an attachment. So, but it's not still here.
What are some of your other paranormal experiences that you've encountered?
Oh, let's see. What else has there been? We had, so in the house that I grew up in, we had a shadow man who kind of pretty peacefully coexisted with us.
So you are the second person that I have talked with about the shadow person.
To talk about the shadow person.
My wife has also experienced the shadow person. Can you describe what the shadow person looked like?
I was going to ask if your wife's shadow person had a hat.
Yes.
Yes.
Like a top hat?
Uh-huh.
I'm getting chills. Explain more of what it looked like.
So our shadow person, we really only saw him going up and down our stairs. Really only
When
saw
you're
him
finished,
going
I'll
up.
explain. Yep.
Yeah. Really only saw him going. Now I have chills. We really only saw him going up and down the stairs. And it was
Oh no.
the silhouette of a man more than anything else. It was really his side.
Her camera froze in the middle of this. This is kind of freaky. So she was just about to tell us about the Hat Man, and her camera's gone. You back?
I'm back. It said that you left. Was it me?
It said on my end that you left. The connection was poor and we lost camera. So we were explaining the Hat Man, and all of a sudden the camera's malfunctioned.
Okay. Interesting.
All right.
Yes. So it was really only the silhouette of the man.
Okay.
You really only saw him from the side, as if he was walking up or down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, I can't even tell because I was a kid, and so the idea of, was he short or was he tall or was he average? Like, at that time, I thought that the man my mother was married to, I thought he was tall, and he was maybe 5'8". So I can't tell you if the shadow man was short or tall, or, but it was just the silhouette of a man wearing a top hat, and we only ever saw him on the steps. We only ever saw him going up and down the stairs. It was only ever in the evening, or early nighttime. Like, it was never super late. It was, we were still awake. Kids were still awake. Well, probably, I shouldn't say only ever. That was the only time we saw him. So maybe 8, maybe 9 o'clock. But I don't know that my mother didn't see him later than that.
So the other medium that I talked to about this, who mentioned it, saw him come in his bedroom late one night, top hat, black overcoat.
Yes,
I don't remember
to the black
if he
overcoat.
Said tall. Okay, I don't remember how tall he was or what Daniel said. But my wife one night, and I didn't see this. I was working overnights at the time, and she said that we have a 2-story house, so she was right outside our bedroom where the steps come up, and she saw, at the time she called him an Amish man because it looked like, the top hat, the overcoat and stuff. And now we're just the Hat Man, or the shadow figure. She saw him coming up the steps. So you go up the steps, there's a landing, then you turn around and come up more. And as he was coming up the steps, I don't know if he saw her or what, but he kind of just faded away. And it's only happened one time here, at least one time that she's told me.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when he told me that, this was a couple weeks ago that I interviewed him, I started freaking out, and not really freaking out, but, I told my wife and everything, and she was kind of getting excited. And then now and I can't wait to tell her this story. So
what state are you in?
Missouri.
Missouri. Okay.
I'm in St. Louis. And, I looked around after she told me about this. I came home like the next day or so or whatever, and I'm looking to see if there's any history of Amish people being around this area, and I didn't see anything. So I doubt if it was an Amish person.
I don't think he's Amish.
No.
I really don't think. I mean, I was in northeastern Ohio at the time. That's where I grew up. So there is a large Amish population there, but I didn't get a sense of Amish from him. I don't, and I shouldn't say him like there's only one, because I don't know that that's necessarily true either. I don't think he's Amish. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, I've kind of just I've researched it, and it's it's the Hat Man. The Hat Man is what we're calling him now. So we've dropped the Amish thing, but that's what she called it at first. And
I don't think he's I don't think he has any ill intent.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
You know, so I don't think he's anybody to be afraid of for any reason.
Right.
Go ahead.
So what that other medium said is that the Hat Man, he just comes to observe, to make sure that everything's okay. I guess to check us out or whatever, make sure that the living are peaceful, I guess. So, and that's basically what he did. I mean, he just came up the steps, saw her, and just kind of faded out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would make... So I'm thinking through that and struggling a bit with that. I mean, that would make some sense, although I come from a childhood with pretty significant trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that the Hat Man coming to see if the living are peaceful would make a ton of sense with the trauma that I come from. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Or maybe he was
know.
just observing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what his purpose is. I know that he was there. He was at our house a lot.
Really?
You know, I mean, it seems to me that he was at our house a lot compared to the people that I talk to who have never seen him, you know?
Yeah. And he's only been here that I know of the one time. I mean, it was late at night. I wasn't even here. You know, all the fun stuff happens when I'm not around or I don't see it. But, you know, so I mean, I haven't seen him again. And we have a ton of Halloween decorations up. So, I mean, there's plenty of invitation for someone, for him to show up again to scare people. But, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it seemed to me like, from what I've gathered with my wife, that he meant no harm whatsoever, just observing, or maybe he didn't even know she was here and just came up the steps, saw her and said, nope, I'm getting out of here. So I find it difficult to believe that he wouldn't have known she was there. Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't know what his purpose is. I haven't seen him since I was a child.
Really?
Yeah. I've only ever seen him in that one home. And
I think it's been more than 16 years. My son's 16, and I don't think he was alive then. He was born then. So it's, well, maybe. I don't know. But it's been quite a while here, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'd be more than welcome to have him come in.
Yeah.
As long as it's peaceful.
And I have talked to other people. Like, he definitely is a thing. And I have talked to other people who have seen him. But yeah, I don't know.
And is it all the same thing, that they don't really interact with him? He's just there?
I have not ever talked to anybody who has interacted with him. Anybody I have talked to has only seen him. I would love to talk to somebody who has a different story.
Okay.
You know, I would love to talk to somebody who has had some kind of interaction with him, or has seen him kind of in a different way. But everybody I've talked to has had a similar story.
I would too. And if I come across somebody, I will send them your way. If they've interacted with them. That would be pretty interesting. So anybody watching this out there in YouTube land or wherever, if you have any contact with the Hat Man, you know, send them our way.
Yeah, please.
And I'll have the email addresses later. It'll be on the bottom of the screen here. So get in touch with us. Interesting.
Yeah, I'll talk to him now.
Yeah. What are you doing here?
I'll have a conversation with him now. Have him sit down and have some tea or whatever he would like.
Yeah. Whatever Hat Men drink.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But yes, always in the overcoat, always in the hat.
Okay. We will be on the lookout for that. Any other interesting experiences lately that you've helped people with or anything?
So, I mean, lately, most of the experiences lately have been people who have wanted to connect with people who have passed recently, and mostly with parents who have passed recently. It's been a lot of just wanting to make sure that their loved ones are okay after they've passed.
Right.
That's been the majority of the recent connections I've made.
I've lost both my parents, and occasionally they will appear in dreams and stuff. I've had my father. I haven't had my mother come and visit or anything, but I know my father's been here. I smelt his cologne drift by one time, so I know he's been here. But I haven't. I mean, it would be nice for them to pop in and say, "Hey, how you doing?" I mean, I do have them in dreams every now and then, which is kind of cool. I kind of sit up in bed like, whoa, what's going on? But
so they are popping in to say, "Hey, how you doing?" And that's the thing. That's one of the things that comes through more often than not is that they are around, and they are. You don't need me to communicate with your loved ones if you're paying attention. They. So often, one of the messages that comes through is, do you hear me talking to you? Do you hear the messages that I'm sending? Are you seeing the signs that I'm sending? They're trying to communicate with us. The question is
poor. Maybe the Hat Man is at it again. There we are.
Here we are again.
That was weird. I was saying maybe the Hat Man's at it again.
But yeah, they're trying to communicate it with us. The question is whether or not we're listening, whether or not we're paying attention to those signs. So yeah, when you smell your dad's cologne, occasionally I'll smell, my dad was a smoker, so I'll smell my dad's cigarette smoke. I see 4:57, the time on the clock, on a regular basis. The address of the house that I grew up in, that my mother lived in, was 4:57.
Wow.
So when I see that, it always takes me to my mom. Those little signs are ways that they're reaching out to let you know that they're nearby, to let you know that that they're supporting you in ways, whatever. So you can ask them questions. You can ask them for specific signs. You can, they will communicate with you directly if you give them the opportunity. And more often than not, that comes through in the mediumship sessions that I give to people, is that they're trying to communicate, if people will just allow them to, if they'll recognize the signs, if they'll open themselves up to hearing those messages.
That's very interesting. I'm not handy at all. I mean, I can do a few things around here, but my grandfather on my mom's side, he can rebuild anything. He was a very handy person. And every time that I'm trying to work on something and I get stuck, excuse me, and I get stuck, I'm always thinking, okay, Grandpa, how do I fix this? What do I do? And then all of a sudden, I mean, that's him telling me. All of a sudden it comes to me like, oh, okay. And then I just, it works. So yeah, I believe that. I totally believe that.
Yeah. And that's him telling you. You're asking for the information and he's giving it to you, and it really is that easy. It's just allowing ourselves to believe that it can be that easy. We have to remember that energy cannot be created and it can't be destroyed.
Right.
It's one of the first laws of physics. It can't be created and it can't be destroyed. And we are energy. The human body is energy. So when a person dies, their energy still exists in some form. The body may not still be animated, but the animation is still here.
Right.
So if you can think about that, if you can think about the soul as still existing and think about it as though that person is just in the next room, they're still there. You just can't see them. You can still talk to them. There can still be interactions, and allow yourself to interact that in those ways. You can still have that relationship.
That's pretty interesting stuff, Faith. I really appreciate you sharing. Yeah, I mean, it's, now that I think about it, they are communicating more with me than I thought. I would just, would like to see a sign. But I think we've actually had a couple signs here. The Hat Man, our cameras went off, and then we were talking about something else, and our cameras went off. So I think we've had a couple signs on this interview alone. So maybe I'll leave all that in when I go and edit.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, if you want to see a sign, ask for it, and ask for it specifically, and let it be something absurd. I had a client who we were talking about it in a slightly different context. We were talking about getting a sign from your spirit guide. But it's the same concept, right? Ask for the sign and let it be something absurd. And so she called me one day and she said, Faith, I know that we don't have an appointment, but if you have just a couple of minutes, I have to tell you a story really quickly. And I said, okay. And she said, so she was in the Smoky Mountains. She had asked to see a sign for something specific, and she asked to see a black unicorn. And she said, we're driving down this road. We're in the Smoky Mountains, and I look out the car window, and there's this gorgeous little black girl with a unicorn headband on. She's like, I asked for a black unicorn, and that's what I was given.
Wow.
And so that's the other thing, is that you have to be open to, maybe it's not going to be exactly the way you envision it,
right,
but it's going to come in some form. Ask for the sign.
It might not be the horse with the horn on it. It'll be, that's
Exactly.
pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting.
Exactly.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, Faith, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. It's been very interesting. Yet another Hat Man story that is very similar to what we've had.
Yep.
And like I said, if anybody's watching has a Hat Man story, email me, paranormalamongus72@gmail.com. And then I will get it to Faith as well. So, Faith, I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And that's all the time we have for now. My thanks to Faith Koltak for joining us today. Another great talk about the Hat Man. That's the third time the Hat Man has appeared on this show. So if you have any contact with him, if you've interacted with him at all, please send me an email at paranormalamongus72@gmail.com, and I'd love to talk to you about that. Also, it's kind of weird that we were talking about it and both of our cameras went off. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But again, thanks to Faith for joining us today. And if you have any other ghost stories, UFO encounters, whatever, send me an email at paranormalamongus72@gmail.com, and I can either read your story on a future episode, or if you want to be a guest on the show, you can come on and we can talk about it. All right? Thanks, everybody, for watching. Stay safe out there, and I will see you on the next episode of Paranormal Among Us.